Welcome to Art Scene. We are at First Congo, which is kind of like Memphis's family room, let's say. Lots of stuff goes on at First Congo, and we're going to be talking about some of that. But first, we're going to talk with Tad Pierson. Welcome to the program.
Rhonda, thanks for having me.
Tad is a dumpster diver. No, is it?
Among other skills, yes.
Perfected, right?
Yeah.
Binghamton Development Corporation.
Correct.
And you are partnering with them, and you're recycling tires.
We're recycling tires, and I've created a bicycle lane barrier design, and Binghamton Development Corporation sort of brings the manpower that helps me install these on the city streets of Memphis. Broad Avenue, Mississippi Boulevard.
Right before the show started, and I was interrupted so we could start the show, but I was talking about like when the green line appeared, it seemed to me it appeared out of nowhere, that it cut through all kinds of political red tape and just happened. And I was amazed that that happened in Memphis. And that's kind of what I feel about the tires.
Well, this is about a 5-year overnight success. Yeah, 5 years ago or so, I was approached to create a bicycle lane barrier design. And then
why? What in your background? I mean, tires now we know it's brilliant, right? But we didn't know that.
Well, that's the mysterious question where art comes, a person's art endeavor comes from. But maybe 15, 20 years ago, I started painting tires. I grew up in the Midwest, and they used tires to hang off of fence posts, no trespassing signs, and
tire gardens.
Garden planters.
Tractor tire gardens, yeah.
And I would say my big breakthrough, Rhonda, in the tire art design business was when
competitive, wasn't it?
It was very competitive. I created a two-tone paint job. I painted the tire, and then I rolled over with a paint roller the top tread, and then the tread design then kind of popped out. And then I started looking at tires differently. Like the tire tread is a really beautiful creative design, and that sort of launched my painting career into a higher orbit, if you will. So tires are kind of a hard medium to work with, cutting through them and forcing them to take other shapes. It's sort of hard work. So I had already taken the sidewall off of tires and stretched them out and done different things with them. So when this woman that worked for the city approached me about creating a bicycle lane delineator, I had already kind of worked with tires in that way. And so I just cut a tire, laid it out flat, and it wants to retain its natural curve, and that gives it a wave effect. And that was the design that the Binghamton Development Corporation saw as useful to their projects of putting up bike lane barriers.
So why were you fascinated with tires even before the bike lane project?
Oh gosh,
a lot of spare time.
Well, one, I was looking for a material to work with that was plentiful and cheap, and they're everywhere. Tires are everywhere.
Yeah, we're wearing some tire art right here. Just examples of what you can do with it.
Well, bicycle tires are also an interesting medium to work with. You can cut bicycle tires with scissors. They don't have steel in them. Car tires are a different, beast.
Yeah, layers and layers of different.
And you have to really have power tools and grinders and things like that to work with.
And also
car
because
tires.
they want to be round, you have to do round stuff with them.
That's the natural shape of what a tire wants to be. It's hard to make them square, So they want to tend
to
stretch them out. But there's a lot of different creative uses that you can use with tires.
How do you attach them to the street so I don't come and take it and use it as a border for my garden? This is a good idea.
That's good point. The barriers that we're putting down, we attach them with what they call TAPCON bolts. Concrete drills and a 5/8 bolt with about 6 inches long that secures them into the asphalt. And there's about 8 bolts per tire.
So
So they're
very
secure.
sturdy. Does that hurt the road? I mean, like, do they have to recover it more often because of that?
We've had one project on Broad Avenue for now 3 years. It's holding up really well. And once people get used to what they are, you can park inside the lane. You can park outside the lane if you want to park on the street. So they really blend into the streetscape.
Why did you choose Broad to start with? Because people are more liberal there and more accepting of it, or I mean, that's what I think.
The city is creating a trail from Shelby Farms, coming in down through Broad Avenue, and then entering Overton Park. You know, there's that big arch with the bicycle there. You come in through into Overton Park, and then the bike trail comes down along the Wolf River and comes into downtown. So it was chosen as part of that system, the kind of guiding bicycles into those streets.
What does it cost? How do you pay for these?
Binghamton Development Corporation is an organization that's trying to create jobs and opportunity in the neighborhood of Binghamton. PowerTel had a warehouse in that neighborhood, and they moved out to Piperton and donated the warehouse to the Binghamton Development Corporation. They are trying to, job training. They're helping people with giving them second chances, getting them back in the job market, and so it was. They teamed up with me, I teamed up with them, and that's how the project got it. And I think that may have been part of the choosing of Broad Avenue, because it's close to the Binghamton project, to the Binghamton Development Project.
Plus, it's such a cool area.
It's a very hip
always
neighborhood.
Want to save a cool area.
And I think you're right. The mindset is, that people in that neighborhood are more bike friendly, than other neighborhoods.
As part of the arts community, tires could be stretching it, but as part of the arts community, does Memphis have a flourishing arts community? Is it kind of underground? Can you make a living?
Well, music, I'd say, if Santa Fe is known for its light and painting, certain towns lend themselves to a certain art style. I think Memphis is very much an artful town and creates artists here. Music is probably the most obvious, functioning art enclave here in town. But photography is a big deal here, and the landscape lends itself to poetic interpretations, if you will. I don't know, Eggleston, Ernest Withers. Currently, Jamie Harmon's working in the city. So I think there's potential for it to really be a photography center, in my opinion.
I think so. I've seen some work from some photographers of some. Part of it is that we haven't torn down everything old.
Right.
And then you're able to embrace that and then maybe make it into something else. Where's the next place we might be seeing tire bike lanes?
That's a good bike lane delineators.
When will we see those delineators again?
The city is open. They're ready to take ideas. If there's a street that is open to this idea, we can approach the city and work out a deal. They're also the Binghamton Development Corporation is now in a position to recreate these, and if we placed an order for 1,000 tires for Kansas City or Denver or Greenville, Mississippi, then we can fulfill the order.
How? How do you find your tires? Do they just roll? Just roll into them?
Just drive through my neighborhood and I'll show you big tire pits.
You can just grab them and don't have to answer to anybody?
Oh, you can. Well, I call it tire harvesting. Going off at tire hunting. They're everywhere, and you can. At some point, if you're going to really scale it up, you have to have sourced the tires somehow. So drive down Chelsea Avenue, Summer Avenue. There's used tire shops, and out back they have 1,000 tires, and they have to do something with them.
Here's
so
something to do with them.
ideally, we're pulling them out of the Wolf River, or we're pulling them out of the ditches. But if we really need a whole lot of them, we can go to these tire shops, and they'll gladly give us 500.
I like the fact that it also creates a walking zone, a safe walking zone. So maybe more people on the streets, more people knowing each other.
Yeah. No, that's kind of one of the surprises. Yeah, I think that's part of the art process. Is you, especially in industrial art, you create, an outdoor piece, and then the public finds other ways to use it that you didn't.
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they'll come.
Tad Pierson, when you're driving down the street and you have a safe place to ride your bike or maybe walk or something because of those tire barriers, you can thank Tad for being a tire recycler. Tad's also a Memphis artist, and I think that you need to come back and talk about the art of the Memphis architecture.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite subjects.
We'll
Till
be
next
back
time.
in a moment with some First Congo stuff. Welcome back to Art Scene. We are at First Congo, which earlier I said was like Memphis's family room because everything takes place at First Congo. Coach Chris Bratton is with us. Welcome
Hi.
to the program. He isn't an escapee from a mental asylum. You're a fencing instructor.
I am.
On purpose?
I am.
Because no one else would do it, or what?
There's other fencing in Memphis, or in the Memphis area. Technically, there's 3 different fencing clubs in the Memphis area. So,
That popular?
sort of, yeah. MUS, which is a boys' school, has a fencing program. And then Collierville, the Collierville Arts Academy, also has a fencing program.
Why? What can you do with fencing now?
So, in a sense, fencing is sort of like the study. It's like doing taekwondo or karate. Nobody's out using taekwondo and karate really in the streets anymore, but it's something that people study. It's an old art form. You're physically...
Like dance moves.
It's a lot like dancing. You're physically moving around. You're mentally incredibly active because when you're fencing with someone, that person is trying to deceive you. That person is watching you, observing you, what you're doing, your movements. So it's physical chess is basically what you're doing. when
Like
you're
boxing with steel?
That's a good way to think of it. I like that. It is a lot. The footwork's very similar to boxing too. So
I can see that. Star Wars, the
Okay.
famous lightsaber scene between Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Did they have to train to do, is that fencing, or would they just make it?
So something interesting about the Star Wars movies. So there's a guy named Bob Anderson who was either a British or Canadian fencing coach, and he was a saber fencer, which you have in your hand, and he was the coach of the saber team. He's the guy, when you're watching The Empire Strikes Back, he's the one that's dressed up as Darth Vader using the sword. So anytime you see Darth Vader with a sword in his hand in The Empire Strikes Back, it's Bob Anderson that actually is wearing that mask, holding that sword. The other thing you'll notice with the Star Wars movies, typically you're looking at what you would think of as Japanese samurai, is what most of it is what you're thinking of when you see samurai, when you see Jedi. But when you watch The Empire Strikes Back and even some of Return of the Jedi, because Bob Anderson is a Western fencing coach, a lot of the actions are done with one hand. It looks more like Three Musketeers when you're watching it, as opposed to samurai. So yeah, and that's all because of Bob
Watch the
Anderson.
show. Find out about your popular movies. So you said this is a saber.
That is a saber.
I noticed that the hand guard, I assume that's what it is.
It's called a bell guard
The bell guard, because I'm a bell.
or a hand guard.
It's uneven. I mean, one side is larger than the
That's
other.
a right-handed saber that you're holding in your hand, so it's going to be bigger on the right side.
So that the sword didn't
Yep.
come up and...
So in saber fencing, the target area for saber fencing is the waist up. So I can hit you anywhere from the waist up to score touches. So your hand, your arm, they are targets. So I'm constantly trying to hit you in that wrist. And the saber's a cutting as well as a thrusting weapon. So I can cut you, but I can also poke you with it. The foil is strictly a pointing weapon, whereas the saber, I cut and I thrust.
And that's a foil.
This is a foil, yep. And this is a French foil. It's called a French foil because it's got a French grip on it. Yep. So the tip out here, this is just called a tip or a button. You can see how much the blade will bend. This is called a pommel. This is your French grip. Bell guard, just like we talked about before. And then this is the blade itself.
Okay, so these are fencing swords.
Correct.
Are real swords this big, or are they?
A real sword's probably gonna be bigger and heavier. Maybe not a lot. It just depends on the sword too. So
See, I think of them as real thin knives, or.
they are. Basically, that's all the sword is a really long knife.
But this doesn't seem like it could cut.
So when we think of sabers, this is very much a light saber. When you see a real saber, it's probably going to be heavier. It's not that they didn't make light sabers, but a light saber might be carried by, say, a gentleman on the street, not necessarily by a military person. Because a military person wants something for combat. It's going to have to be able to take a beating and beat others with it as well.
So a lightsaber is just for show?
A lightsaber?
A light. This saber is
The
just
lighter
for show?
saber. So this is a training weapon, is the way you would think of this.
I know, but if you're carrying it on the street.
If you were carrying it on the street, yeah, it would be. A lot of people would have been carrying swords on the streets that had no sword skills whatsoever.
Oh, just because they
You know,
have the thing.
Just because you're wearing basketball shoes doesn't mean you can play basketball. So the same thing would have been taking place at the same time. There would have been a lot of people, because it would have been fashionable to walk around with swords. So people would have been doing it for fashion, not necessarily for defense per se.
Placed on their hand.
And so a lot of people would have just been walking around. And the swords got lighter, they got prettier. And so what we're looking at here is kind of a later evolution of swords. And the saber, the fencing saber, is just, it's a very light weapon. There wouldn't be a lot of real sabers that would compare to that. But when you shrink, say, just a simple thrusting weapon, you would wander into what are called small swords. And these would have been far later, much more almost modern times. And they would be very light and be about the same length. It'd be thin. It wouldn't be sharp on both sides. It would only be sharp on the tip. But it would be like holding a giant knitting needle out there in your hand. And it would be very light, and the tip of it would be very sharp.
Okay, so you see fencing in movies, saw it in Star Wars. Did it develop as a military weapon? That's a different kind, right?
So you're talking about,
So
we're
what
just talking
is
about
this
sword
for?
play. We're talking about sword play. It's all about sword play. And originally, people carried swords for a lot of different, basically for protection, right? And so people became proficient in sword play, and then those people would teach other people how to use a sword. Dueling was really common in Europe in the 13, the 14, the 1500s. And if you were going to ask for a woman's hand in marriage, her father may say, "How many duels have you been in?"
Really?
Now, those duels aren't necessarily to the death. A lot of times we're just going out there, maybe I nick you in the arm, you bleed, we're done. We walk away, we smoke cigars, we drink cognac, we have a good day. You know, life goes on. It's not about killing you at all. Now, what brought the duel around? Who knows? It could be you insulted me. They were just looking for reasons to duel. And so, some people had dozens, some people may have had hundreds of duels, you know, but yeah, they're not dying from it all the time. Of course you could die from it.
Yeah, I'm thinking, but so it was valid play.
Until it became illegal, you know, and then it became illegal because,
We had guns.
well, guns changed things a lot, right? But so it became illegal because people didn't want to see, just like with guns, don't want to see people getting shot in the streets. And so two people might all of a sudden break out into a fight in the street with swords. People don't want to see that either. When dueling, toward the end of dueling, they would wander off to secret locations. Even here in the Memphis area, there's places on the southern parts of the city where there's they used to call it the Dueling Oak. And it was just a big giant oak tree, and this is where people would go and duel, because maybe they're not in the county where it's illegal, or maybe they go just into Mississippi, or they would go to an island in the Mississippi River. Anywhere they could go where technically they weren't breaking the law. Yep, I'm sure there probably were duels that were fought on that island.
Probably.
So
When did it become an art form where you're teaching it at first Congress?
So what happens is the military obviously creates books, and you have other fencing masters who create books. And a lot of these people are teaching people how to duel. so that they can go out and fight duels. But over time, dueling falls out of popularity. But everybody wants to play with swords. So how do you so it's easy for it to stay alive and to keep going. And so gradually it evolved into a sport or just a recreational activity of sorts. And so in the Olympics in 1896 is when the modern Olympics started, and fencing was one of the original Olympic sports and has been ever since. And so there's 3 different weapons. You have the saber, I have the foil, and you also have the épée. And you'll also notice we have different grips too. This is called a Visconti grip, also known as an American grip. And so they're also, most people just call them pistol grips. And this is a right-handed, so you want to grab that with your right hand. And you're almost holding it right. Put your index finger on the bottom too. So the pistol grips originally started because people would go off to combat, and then maybe they were fencers before they left, but when they come back, they're missing a finger or two. And so these were basically like crutches for fencers, kind of think of it that way. And then over time, most of your modern fencers, you're gonna see holding some sort of pistol grip. The French grip is common in épée, which is what you're holding it, but French grip and épée, they'll do it because they'll hold it what's called pommeling. They'll hold it way out here to give them extra reach.
I thought they were all called épée.
Nope. Épée just means sword in French.
Okay.
So technically they're all épées, right? But the épée that you're holding in your hand is also very close to what the evolution of actual dueling swords themselves looked like. So they would have this thing called a case of swords. And somebody would come, so you show up to dueling grounds, you've seen the movies where they come and they open the box up, there's 2 different pistols in it, same sort of thing. They would show up, that way you're not holding a sword like that and I'm holding a sword like this. We're both there, both have the same sort of swords. The épée that you see, it was referred to as the épée de combat, and it just evolved to just be called the épée, but it would have looked a lot like that, except it would have had a sharp tip on the end of it and not that electric tip. This is an electric épée right here. So this is it's a tournament épée. So when you see people competing in the Olympics, this is what they're using. Yep. And come all the way out here to the tip, right here, there's a little button right there. That's how the touch is scored. So when I press that button and it hits the other person, that's how you know that I hit them with the épée.
So if you're doing that kind of tournament, you train so that you don't shove it all the way in or anything.
The blade's going to bend. The blade's going to bend a little bit. So there's different rules for each weapon. So let's start with the épée because it's the easiest rules. I can hit you anywhere on your body. First person hits scores a touch. If we both hit each other at the same time, we both get a touch. Doesn't matter. I can hit you in the feet, I can hit you in the face, I can hit you in the hand. It doesn't matter. Anywhere on your body. So
strategy.
So yep. And so and it's whoever hits who first. So let's take this out of your hand for a second.
Yeah, it's heavy. I like the red one.
Let's go to the foil.
Oh yeah.
So this is the foil. That's a French grip foil. This is the target area for foil, front and back. This is called a metallic lame. You'll notice it's metal thread basically. And when you watch the Olympic fencing, this is what they're trying to hit when they're fencing foil. So that's the target area for foil.
And it's in a different color so that it's easy to...
It doesn't have anything to do with that. No. Sometimes they're even white in terms of the lames.
Oh, okay.
Saber has to wear a lame as well for tournament fencing, and it covers the whole upper part of the body. So from the waist up, their arms, their head, everything is covered with metallic fabric like that.
So there's an etiquette to
sure.
the different kinds of fence.
So with the foil and as the saber as well, we have what's called right-of-way rules. And this is a priority rule. So what happens is, if I attack you, you're obligated to defend yourself. You can't just attack into my attack. If I attack and then you attack into my attack and we hit each other at the same time, it's my touch. I attacked you first. And these rules were kind of set up so that if the two of us are in an actual sword fight, if I attack you, you just sticking your sword out at me and we both run each other through the chest, it's not the smartest move that you could have made that day, right? So the idea is if you're being attacked, you should defend yourself and then you come back with your own attack. And so when you're seeing fencing with foil and saber, you'll see a lot of back and forth play, almost like watching a tennis ball being hit back and forth across the net.
Yes.
So one person will attack, that person defends, and it goes forward and back and back and back and forth like that. Épée, you see a lot of people attack each other at the same time because there's no right of way, whoever can hit who first. So the strategy is different because there is no right of way. No, we don't care if you attacked first or not. As long as I can hit you first, that's all that matters. So
This is fascinating, and we've only got a couple of minutes left. How do people find out more about this? How do you learn to fence? And I was going to ask why, but obviously it's fun.
it's fun. It's a game. All you're doing is playing a game.
There's choreography, there's strategy, there's etiquette. I mean, and there's physical.
You're physically active. You're getting out. You're playing a game, you know?
You get to wear cool outfits. That's uppermost on my
Well,
list.
let's talk about the outfit real quick. So this is armor. It doesn't look like armor. You wouldn't think that it's armor. This is meant to protect me when that breaks. Because that will break. At some point in time, it's going to break. And when it breaks, that broken part of that blade is going to go right into my chest. And this is meant to protect me from broken blades. It doesn't really provide me a lot in the way of, you can feel it's not real thick. It doesn't provide me a lot of padding. It's a little bit of light padding. The more expensive they get, it's even less padding. There's less fabric there. So, but it's meant to protect me from a broken blade. So that's the main purpose for what I'm wearing. Originally, they came out white in the beginning. They wouldn't have been white in the beginning. You would have gone to a fencing school and you would have wore whatever clothes you got to your fencing school.
Yeah.
It kind of changed to white at the same time that people started wearing white to Wimbledon. It was kind of a fashionable sport.
Outfit.
It's an outfit and it's white, which means you probably had money back in the 1700s when people were going to fencing schools, because who could keep anything clean, right? So it was kind of a status symbol for that. And then they also say that if you were to get stabbed and you start bleeding, obviously you're going to see it more quickly on white fabric.
Yeah, that's what I'd always heard.
so-
I figured there was more to it than that.
I think it's more of a cultural fashion. I think it was
part
more
of the
fashion.
costume that you put on in order to fence. So how do people get involved?
So I teach classes twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. I have 2 classes each night, one from 5:45 to 6:45 and another one from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And on the last Saturday of almost every month, I have an introduction to fencing class on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock.
In case you're on the fence about it.
The great thing about the introduction class is that if you're going to be in a room full of other people who don't know anything, everybody there knows nothing. You don't have to come to that. You can come to a class anytime, at any level. It doesn't matter. And I've got all the equipment, so you could come here and fence forever and never buy equipment. That's the whole idea. And we don't fence with most of the electric stuff. Most everything here's, you hear the sound of blades, you don't hear the sounds of buzzers.
Old-fashioned fencing.
Yeah.
There is so much to do and know out in Memphis, and part of it is here at First Congo with Coach Chris. You need to get out and enjoy your city. Thanks for being with us.
Friends of the Library helps to raise money for all 18 Memphis Public Library locations, their programs, and services. Donate as a one-time monthly or yearly contribution to help us continue to serve the approximately 2 million customers who enter Memphis Public Libraries annually.
You're watching the Library Channel, a broadcast service of the Memphis Public Libraries and the City of Memphis.